Hello and welcome back to another winning installment of Scene on Streaming. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the three documentary seasons of a series, but three separate series of the same thread. The Long Way series with Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman. We have Long Way Round from 2004, Long Way Down from 2007, and Long Way Up from 2019. I watched all of these on the Apple TV Plus streaming service. I don't feel like, did Disney come up with the Plus thing? And now everyone's doing like there's Paramount Plus that's coming. I should start a second channel called RazorwireReviews Plus. Anyway, so Apple TV Plus, which I initially subscribed to for 7 days to watch Ted Lasso, which I really loved. Then I saw that the new Long Way Up series was on there. I was like, oh my god, I haven't seen this. I would love to see this. I'm really excited about checking it out. And then I saw they had the back catalogue of the first two series, Long Way Round and Long Way Down. And I hadn't seen the first one since I think I've seen it a couple of times. So I probably watched it when it first aired in 2004. I don't know what channel it aired on, BBC One. I don't know which channel had the rights to it. Maybe it was a Sky thing. But clearly Apple have come in and got the rights to those first two series, which is nice. They look nice, like they've kind of got the same thumbnails on Apple TV Plus. One thing I'll say about the Apple TV Plus app is that I think it's changed now, but when I first subscribed a few months ago, there was no search function. No search function. It was like really difficult to navigate. Even with the Long Way series, like I'm trying to find the episode that I was on, and you have to go up and down. It's a big, run around, and it was a bit of a, the UI was a bit clunky. I'll say that, but I think there was an update throughout my kind of viewing of these three series, which took about 2.5 months actually. So I really took a nice leisurely approach to watching these series, and I was so glad that Connie was interested enough to watch along with me. So if you're unfamiliar with the shows, they're documentary shows that follow Ewan McGregor and his one of his best friends, Charlie Boorman, as they go on motorcycles. I was kind of getting motorbikes and motorcycles mixed up in my head and missed one of the letters in the word, and I'll leave that in for free, as I always tend to do. Motorcycle adventures around the world, literally around the world. The first one, Long Way Round, they did in 2003, I believe. The show came out in 2004, and it follows them from London. I think they start in London from their HQ, and they go to New York. It takes them about 3 months, and they go the long way round. So instead of just taking a boat across the Atlantic, they go in the opposite direction. They go down through Europe and through Russia, and then over to Alaska, obviously by plane, and then through America all the way to the East Coast. So that's kind of the first one, and I watched that on TV when it came out. I then got the DVD, and I think I watched it again. But it's been a good genuine probably 15 years since I've seen that show. And then in 2007, they did a follow-up, came out in 2007, called Long Way Down, where they start at the very top of Scotland in the UK, John O'Groats, all the way down through Europe and Italy, down to the tip of Africa, and then right down to the bottom. So they go through Egypt and all sorts of different countries, and that's another one that took them about 2.5-3 months to do. So these are big, long trips, very extensive, arduous journeys. And then the final series, Long Way Up, came out in 2019. Came out in 2020. They did the journey in 2019 very handily, maybe within 6 months spitting distance of the pandemic kicking off. So it's a good thing they got it in while they could, and it was a long time, I think, coming for them guys to kind of come back together again and do another trip. And that third one, Long Way Up, was notable in that they did the trip on Harley-Davidson prototype electric motorbikes. And that's a big part of the story of that trip, is the electric element, and seeing if they could do it that way. And the trip for that one was starting in Ushuaia, I think, or Ushuaia, at the very bottom of South America. And they go all the way up, kind of crisscrossing through Argentina and Chile, and all the way up through South America into Central America, up to Mexico, and then they end in Los Angeles. I almost thought, like, why not go to the very tip of North America? But, it's they're a lot older. They're kind of touching 50, I think. I think that Charlie's a little bit older than Ewan, but, they're certainly not in their early 30s, when they made the first one, I think. I think Ewan was in his early 30s, Charlie, again, a bit older, but they're not as young as they used to be. And Charlie had a very serious series, I think, of motorbike accidents before Long Way Up. So his legs were an issue, and so it wasn't quite to the epic length as the first two, but it was still fairly long. It's not like they skimped or anything, but it was an epic trip for all three, I think. Anyway, so my thoughts. It was a really great thing to watch this with Connie, I think, and it became kind of almost daily viewing because I would put it on every day that I came home for my lunch break from work. I kind of work fairly close to where I live, and for me it's worth sacrificing 10 to 12 minutes of my lunch break to kind of have 45 minutes in the comfort of my own home. It's kind of a nice thing. I get to see Connie more because with my work schedule, sometimes we don't see each other, for a couple of days for any length of time. And so it's nice to have that kind of 45 minutes where I can sit down with Connie, eat something, and usually throw something on the TV. And so Long Way Round, Down and Up became the kind of the event viewing for my breaks. And then also on the, my off days, we'd sit down and then watch a longer chunk of an episode. And it's a good thing because you don't really feel the need like, oh, what's going to happen at the end? Sometimes you do because they kind of tailor some of the episodes to the point where there is this kind of cliffhanger that needs to get resolved in the next episode. But for the most part, you can just watch it through and just stop it at any point. And, it's not like a movie or a show where there's like a narrative going on. Obviously, there's a natural narrative of their journey and stuff, but it was a good thing to just pick up and watch at any point for me. So that was a big part of it, was having that kind of daily ritual of watching it, but also having something to share with Connie. Obviously, we watch stuff together all the time, but it was just, it was nice for me because Long Way Round was a show that I loved when it came out, and I was just really looking forward to revisiting it. I felt like I needed to watch it again before watching the new one, and I remember hearing about the new one maybe a year or two ago. I'm not sure exactly when they first announced it, and I was like, holy shit, they're doing another. I was genuinely really excited because I loved the first one. Now, my theory is that I've seen bits and pieces of Long Way Down, the second series, which came out in 2007, because I felt like I'd never seen it. I felt like I'd seen a clip of them with gorillas at some point in Africa, but apart from that, I didn't remember anything. But as we were watching Long Way Down, I'm like, oh, I'm remembering this and this, but not all of it. I definitely didn't remember all of it, so I feel like I saw bits of it. In 2007, I was still heavy into traveling around the country, doing backyard wrestling, so I probably missed a lot of it and just caught an episode here or there. So it was good to finally see Long Way Down in its entirety, and then Long Way Up, the new series, which is quite a jump in terms of the visual quality. So that's one thing I can talk about, is the way that it's presented. I believe they've cropped it into widescreen because, 2004, it wasn't shot in high definition. It's a standard definition documentary, but it fills to widescreen, and so I think they have cropped some stuff. I've got the DVD of the first of Long Way Round somewhere, but I haven't been bothered to check. See, for me, when it's like a show or a movie that's been composed very specifically, that's when I get funny about original aspect ratios and stuff. When it's a documentary, I mean, there is certainly an element of the cinematography that is not quite being presented, but at the same time, I think that when they're on a journey like that, and they had a guy who went along with them on a third motorbike called Claudio von Planta, who was there for all three of the kind of adventures as the cameraman, or the kind of main cameraman going along with them, so he can ride ahead of the guys for like 10 minutes and then set up a camera and get a nice gorgeous shot of them riding across a barren landscape and stuff. And in the third series, Long Way Up, lots of incredible drone shots and stuff like that. So obviously A Long Way Up, it's widescreen, high definition, they used 4K cameras and everything, and it looks completely different because you get such amazing cinematography in terms of the drone footage and just the higher quality dash cams on the helmets and everything. And I should mention, I don't want to go into too much detail here, but I should mention they also travel with support vehicles, just because there might be issues like medical issues and stuff, and that does crop up in I think all three of the seasons. You do get these issues where the support crew who travel along with them, including the two directors, Russ Malkin and David Alexanian, I think is his last name, they're kind of integral to the crew, and they're part of the adventure too, but for the most part, as they say in the intro of every episode, the two guys are kind of on their own, but also with Claudio. So you do get the cropping on the Apple TV Plus, I have to say, but one positive is that when the first two shows aired in the UK, there was, I think, maybe 7 or 8 episodes, and then they later came out in DVD in regular editions and then extended special editions. And the extended special editions have, like, I think 2 or 3 extra episodes. So I was sitting down to watch Long Way Round, and there's like the whole first episode is their preparation, which is almost as fascinating as the trip itself. You know, all the kind of setting up their kind of HQ and putting it together and building the shelves and stuff, and picking the bikes and going on, you know, training kind of trips for certain off-road biking, you know, stuff and everything. It was really, really interesting stuff. And then the episode ends, and I was like, wait, they still haven't left? And then there was another episode of preparation because it was the extended version, but I'm so glad that Apple did bring over all of the episodes in their extended, fullest form, because you know, I just think that it's such an enjoyable show. I want to see the most that's available to me. So I was really glad that they did the extended versions of Long Way Round and Long Way Down. So, right, visual stuff aside, and you know, whether it's extended or not, the actual shows. Where would I rank them? I think that for me, Long Way Round is probably unbeatable. I mean, it's just, it feels like the toughest journey for them, especially when they're in, I think it's Mongolia. Either way, there's one country in particular where they're just struggling so much, and they're making a few miles in an hour or so, and it's just like they almost kind of not quit but go in a different direction. And that comes around to a beautifully touching moment in Long Way Up, when Ewan talks about how that moment in Long Way Round, when they were considering just going north and kind of going around the tough area that they were going through on their original plan, they considered, you know, doing that and just leaving the country and kind of going a different direction. But they decided that part of the journey is the struggle. And so they pushed forward and they visited this UNICEF site, I think. There's a lot of UNICEF visits throughout all 3 series. And they meet all these kids, and there's this one little girl who's like 3 years old, and you know, no family or anything. And you know, Ewan's saying that it's heartbreaking seeing kids like that, and you know, there's something about this little girl and everything. And that was that, you know, and that there's plenty of those throughout, you know, Long Way Round, Long Way Down, and Long Way Up, where they're just seeing these kids and you know, supporting these projects, these charity ventures, which are really, you know, heartbreaking when you see some of the stuff that's going on around the world, and they're bringing attention to it, bringing light to it. And I think that that's great that they include that into the shows and into the trips. And then suddenly out of nowhere, you know, for someone who obviously isn't a part of Ewan McGregor's personal life, he says in Long Way Up, and I was surprised that they didn't mention this in the most recent series, like in the preparation episode, that at one point they were going to meet up with Ewan's daughter towards the end of the trip. So it's like one of the last episodes of Long Way Up. He says, we're going to meet up with my daughter, and he's really looking forward to seeing her and everything. And then he tells the story of where his daughter came from. His daughter was that little 3-year-old girl in Long Way Round, from Mongolia. I think it was Mongolia. I might have got that wrong. If I have, that's going to bug me. But regardless, in Russia, there was that one kind of fateful meeting that wouldn't have happened if he'd gone north and quit like he really wanted to. And he gets really emotional, understandably, saying, like, I wouldn't have my daughter if I didn't keep going in that direction. You know, and that Long Way Round trip was so special because I think he said it took them a couple of years to kind of get that adoption to come through. And then you see her as this grown woman, you know, maybe like 18, 19 in Long Way Up, and it's just so sweet and touching to see the relationship that they have and how close they are, and how that came from that first journey. So there's lots of you know, nice moments like that, but there's also a lot of silliness throughout all 3 series. And I think that Connie had a particular distaste for Charlie throughout a lot of it. I think that it's worse in the first 2 series, where he's a bit vulgar, and he also is very reckless with his with his riding. You know, the no hands and doing the Superman pose on his bike, and you know, what was the wheelies? He was always pulling wheelies on his motorbike, and Connie just hates seeing that. But in the 3rd series, Long Way Up, obviously he's a lot older, and he's been through a few accidents, and he's got a problem with his leg, so there's not as much showboating from Charlie. But towards the end, he really does kind of push it a little bit. But there's a lot of fun between the two of them, and it's kind of this endearing thing where Ewan, I think, for me personally, he says a lot of things that are kind of mildly funny, and he'll add this kind of laugh at the end of it. And it reminds me a bit of my dad, where it's like he'll say something that isn't really laugh out loud funny, but then he laughs at it and it becomes a bit more enjoyable. And you're like, oh, that wasn't really that funny, but it's, you have such an endearing laugh that it's kind of, I'm enjoying this, you know. So that was, and there's quite a few like Star Wars references throughout, which are really fun, and I've been posting some of those on Twitter. Just fun interactions. There's a really good one in Long Way Up when then one of the best things about the show is just these random encounters where they'll just meet someone in the middle of nowhere, or you know, just in a random town, and they say, hey, come in and have food, and they don't necessarily know that he's a famous actor. They just know there's a film crew and these guys are on an adventure, so they just make food for them, very hospitable and everything. And you see all of these great interactions, and this one guy kind of invites them in, gives them food and stuff, and then he's suddenly kind of looking over at Ewan, and he's just like, he's like this, he's like, and he says the island, which is a film that Ewan McGregor was in. And Ewan's at the table just looking at Charlie like, I think he's kind of half onto me, half not onto me. I'm not too sure if he's clocked it yet. And he's like, he and then Ewan says something to the effect of, he should trust his instincts. Yes, trust your instincts. Use the Force. You know, so it feels like in the most recent series he really leans into the Obi-Wan stuff even more than he did in the first two. He'll even quote other Star Wars things in the shows, but I think the fact that when Long Way Up was made, that was after the announcement was officially made, he was coming back to do the Obi-Wan show, so I think it's more in his mind. So there's a lot of fun little moments like that, but just you know, all you know, taking Star Wars out of it, you know, which obviously pleases me as a fan. It's just these really sweet moments. There's this guy, I can't remember the specifics now because there's so many meetings throughout all three of these series. This guy, Ewan accidentally breaks his glasses. And he's like, oh, yeah, I feel so bad. And he's like trying to give him money. And the guy's like, no money. It's fine. Accidents happen. That's the way that life is, you know. And this guy who, you know, arguably has, you know, nowhere near the financial security as Ewan McGregor, refuses the money because it's an accident. No worries, you know. Really humbling stuff, I think. One of my favorite sections of any of them, I think, was towards the end of Long Way Up when they take this boat. And it's really a very convoluted trip, the last one, Long Way Up, as they're going up through South America, because there's loads of these like dangerous spots that they need to avoid. So there's like a plane here, and then a boat here, and another plane, and going back on another plane, a boat here, and it got very jumbled in the middle there. But there's this one point where they need to get on a boat for like 2 days, and they turn up, and it's like, that's not the boat from the picture. This looks like it's going to fall apart. And you see these people on there and they're cutting up fish for the food and stuff. And it's like, oh my God, what's going on? And it ends up being one of the most enjoyable parts of the whole show for me as a viewer. And apparently for the guys on the trip, it was such an adventure and just full of people on the boat with real character and stuff, and just a proper adventure. You know, it's the kind of stuff that I would probably really not enjoy because I'm very... what's the word? I'm kind of a homebody. I like going on trips and stuff, but I like being comfortable. I'm not very good at the kind of gritty, kind of grimy stuff. You know, like, you know, getting your hands dirty and stuff, and, you know, maybe sleeping in, you know, a dodgy, you know, room or something. I like being comfortable and clean. You know, that's kind of like a particular thing with me. I'd love to not have that and just really go out on adventures and stuff, but I enjoy watching other people doing that and live vicariously through it. The motorbike thing is another thing. It seems like such a liberating, freeing thing to go on these trips. Even just to ride a motorbike down a highway seems like something that'd be really fun. I've ridden on the back of bikes, but I haven't actually driven one myself. But it's fun to watch, and it's an adventure. And there's this particular stretch through the Road of Bones in Russia in Long Way Round where it gets so hairy, and there's this one particular thing that just was burned into my brain. I was really looking forward to seeing it again. Almost seems like a scene out of Sorcerer, you know, the William Friedkin movie, where they have to get the bikes across these streams, these very powerful streams, and so they put the bikes on the back of these trucks. And the truck is trying to go through this one particular stream, and the current is so strong, and the dip down is so steep that the truck almost gets taken away. And we're talking real, like, situations where people could die. Like, literally, it's very hairy stuff. And they try and, like, you know, they get, like, shovels and start kind of trying to, you know, sand down the edge of the, you know, the kind of the ground and the dirt and the rock and everything. And it's like a real group effort. Trees fall down across the road, they've got to clear them and stuff, so it's like proper. And Ewan really loves all that stuff. He loves getting stuck in, and Charlie got injured in that first season as well. There's a bit in Long Way Down in Africa when they get stuck in this swamp, and they got to use winches and stuff. It felt like something I've Uncharted, the last game Uncharted 4. So really, I love all that stuff where there's a big problem to overcome, and instead of panicking and freaking out, and they do maybe a little bit, but they get it done, and it's just fun to see how they solve those problems. And in the most recent one, the problems are typically revolving around the electric problem and how they can charge their bikes. At the beginning, they really struggle because in the colder climates in South America, the bikes wouldn't, the kind of charge wouldn't last as long. Whereas when it's sunny, the battery seems to last longer. And also if there's wind resistance, that really pushes against things. There's a moment where they go into really high altitudes and one of the crew members gets the altitude sickness. So there's, but it's just nice seeing all over the world through the lens of these two guys who are really good friends and are having fun. There's one bit in the second series in Long Way Down, the Africa trip, where Ewan and Charlie fall out and they really get into it. And they said, we decided to turn the cameras off for that particular. I'm just like, oh my god, you can like just give me the arguments and stuff. It would have been really juicy, viewing. But they fell out and they sorted it out. And they felt like they weren't on the same page throughout the trip, and they got their heads together and worked it all out and stuff. So I think that's a good message for people sometimes, that you might fall out with your friends, but it's not worth kind of throwing everything away for. Obviously, they're neck deep in this trip where they have to be together, so they got to sort something out. So maybe that's kind of one of those high pressure situations that gives you a solution again, to a problem. Whereas if it was a falling out that happened in day-to-day life, you'd then both go home and maybe stew on it for a few months, and it would damage your relationship. But there, they've got to just keep moving forward and stuff. So I absolutely love these shows. I could go on and on about them. There's so many great moments that I really enjoy, and it's the small interactions. There's this woman in, I want to say Ukraine or Hungary, perhaps. I'm not entirely sure, in one of the European country in the first series, Long Way Round. And she's talking to Ewan, and she's this really old woman, lots of character on her face and all the wrinkles, and you can tell she's lived a life, and she's like talking to Ewan, and she's doing all this, and he's like, I don't understand a word she's saying, but he's being so personable, and he's trying to speak to her, and they're kind of communicating, but they're not. But the fact that he's trying, that it was just a really sweet moment. I love those things, and I almost didn't mention this, and I don't think it really is worth mentioning. I don't think anyone will find it funny because it's such a deep cut reference that no one would even get it, but maybe I can explain it a little bit better and you'll understand why it's funny. So towards the end of A Long Way Round, they get to Alaska, and they go on this small plane ride, this little tiny plane, and it takes them around this glacier, I think. And so they go off and they're looking at the glacier, and then the plane lands. Ewan comes out of the plane and he's like, oh, that's proper National Geographic stuff. I am National Geographic. And then Charlie gets out and he's like, oh, just wait, it just went on and on. Almost gets a bit boring, really. And he does this weird kind of donkey laugh almost. It's like kind of, I can't even do it now. It's funny. Like I've been mimicking it for months, but now that I'm on camera, I can't really do it. But it's like I feel put on the spot by myself now, but he does this little giggle. I can't do it. I really can't do it. Okay, I'll leave all that in for free. But I don't know if you've seen it, mate. You wouldn't. It's just it's such a tiny moment. But the reason that we got stuck on that, me and Connie, is because the Apple TV Plus app, for some reason, just burned that point into the show into its memory. So whenever we try to watch any further episode, it would always start in that moment in that episode, and we'd have to go back and go into the other thing. So that little moment, it just starts with him going, it just goes on and on, really. It gets a bit boring after a while, does a little laugh, and we were just cracking up because the little laugh he does is so ridiculous. And we're mimicking it, and we're laughing, and then we're doing Long Way Down, and then suddenly it'll just pop back up again, it just start playing. And at the very end of everything, this 2+ month journey of watching all three of these shows, all, I think maybe 31, 32 episodes of the thing. Long Way Up was finished, and it was kind of an emotional moment. It felt like the end of an era. I felt like I'd gone on a journey with these guys, watching all three of these adventures, and it felt sad because I know I'm not going to watch that again for probably at least 10 years, because it's not the kind of thing you watch over and over again. And who knows if it'll even be around on Apple TV Plus again, if Apple TV Plus will be around in 10 years. But, it was nice that it was all there on streaming. I didn't have to buy all the DVDs and everything. I have the first, Long Way Around somewhere on DVD, but it was just really convenient to have it all there and then obviously they have the rights to the streaming of the new series Long Way Up. But it felt sad because it was kind of an end of an era, and it was kind of, poignant. And I loved being on that adventure with those guys, vicariously through watching it. And the last episode ends, and it's like, oh, it's all over now. Like, what do we watch now every day when I'm on my break from work and stuff? And then the credits roll, and it goes right to the end, and then suddenly it just loads right back up with that episode from Long Way Round and that point, and I just hit play. Just goes on and on. Really gets a bit boring after a while, doesn't it? And I just that's perfect. And it was just one of those weird things that, like, that sometimes happens, and I doubt that. I mean, there's no way that that's happened to anyone else. I doubt anyone in the entire world has fixated on that one moment of that one show and that one episode and that one line, that one laugh. It was one of the things that kind of randomly pop up and stick with you, and I don't know. I'll always think about that moment, and we're now quoting that fairly regularly. Not the laugh so much now, but just the kind of, it just goes on and on, really gets a bit boring after a while. And you can apply that to so many things, and so it's fun. So overall, I loved the series, loved the show, and I would say that, so Long Way Round's my favourite in terms of the sentimentality. I feel like the adventure is the toughest and stuff. And there is a charm to kind of the standard definition footage of the first two shows. And when you do get to Long Way Up, the pristine, clean, high definition 4K drone footage almost seems a little bit too, a bit too fancy almost for the show. And there is this separation because there were so many years between, the Long Way Down and Long Way Up. And they do mention the fact that they drifted apart as friends, and that's a nice part of it, that they feel that they've been brought back together again, and there's a lot of love between the two, which is really nice and stuff. But I do feel like there's more of a, again, charm to those first two. There's just some incredible stuff. The things that they see, that these ancient ruins and things, and this probably Long Way Down is the most fascinating for all the kind of ancient stuff when they see the pyramids, and there's this particular set of ruins that was just phenomenal. I could go on and on, but I think that Long Way Up, I enjoyed it, but it didn't feel quite the same to me. But in the last half of it, the back end, those last few episodes were so good that I think that it probably inches up to the number 2 spot, and Long Way Down's at the bottom. But I love all of them, I really do. And that's pretty much it. I've exhausted myself in terms of singing the praises of these shows. I think they're really good. Will they do another one? I don't think they will, and I think it's probably nice that they leave it there, because it's such a, I don't know, it's such an, well, obviously it's an adventure, but it's such a production to mount, that it takes so much time and effort and stress, and none of these guys are getting any younger. And where would they go? I mean, they've done round, they've done down, and they've done up. What do you do? Long way diagonally? I don't know. One thing I'd like to see is them go to, like, I mean, it isn't much of a journey that way, but there's lots of islands like Japan and New Zealand and places like that you can't really do a big world trip to, but you could, you go to different islands and fly around, but then it feels like there's not much of a straight line then to a certain, I feel like they've kind of done it all. I think at this point there's not really a huge, uncharted territory for those two guys, so I think they'll probably leave it there in terms of the big trips, but I'd like to see more from them maybe one day. But also there is, as Vision says, a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts. All good things come to an end, and I'm glad that they did this third one, and it was really nice to see. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you've seen these shows, what you think about them, any thoughts you have, because I really love them, and I don't really know anyone who's seen them. They seem like fairly obscure things that not many people have seen. Obviously, there are fans of it out there, but I don't know anyone personally or through my kind of online YouTube friends who have seen it, so I'd be intrigued. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
He's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you, 'cause